Okay. Welcome back. This is Victoria from Women's Issues, Women's Voices, and we are in the second half of a wonderful interview with Shay Seaborne. She's a trauma awareness activist and artist. We talked in the first half about a little bit more about you, Shay, about how this, like how you got into this work. And it's like, well, it's not really work for you. It's like life mission. It's right. It's what you are called to do. And at the end, you were talking a little bit about like the trauma is, it's truly a change to your nervous system. Right? And we wanted to talk about a couple of different points that are important to you about like what you want people to be aware about trauma. And the first one you said to me was unresolved trauma is cumulative and compounded. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, I have a lot of experience with it. When the trauma is unresolved, the body is on red alert constantly, and that causes changes in the body. It actually changes the structure, the architecture of the brain is changed by the stress hormones caused by the chronic acute stress of trauma. If the trauma is never resolved, the brain and body never understand that it's over. So they keep reacting as if the danger is still happening. So parts of the brain like the amygdala flare up and take over. And that means the resources are not accessible for other parts of the brain, like the hippocampus, which helps us put things in the past, and the prefrontal cortex, which is involved with being able to make good decisions and appreciating beauty, feeling joy, and being connected to other people and feeling safe. So all those things become much less accessible when we're in fear mode. We're really in our reptilian brain, fight, flight, freeze, or collapse.
So let's go back. We didn't explicitly, I think I touched on it, but didn't explicitly define. When we're using the word trauma, we're saying that that it could be an event that itself, like we think of it as a traumatic event. It can also be a lifetime, or a childhood of small, constant, negating, verbal, physical, small. I mean, it doesn't have to be like one huge event.
Right.
But that the trauma is really not the events.
Right.
That the trauma is, and so how do you describe that to people? The trauma itself is?
Well, the trauma itself is, this is the easiest definition and the broadest: too much or too little for too long.
I've got to write that one down.
Yeah. It's so basic and it's non-shaming, and that's the point. In all the research I've done learning about what trauma is and what the trauma response is, that everybody's individual trauma response, no matter how whacked out it is appropriate for the environment in which their bodies learned that response. So under normal conditions, a traumatic or potentially traumatic experience is processed through the body and through the people around, the support around you. If you're in a car accident and you break your leg, they set your leg, they give you the proper medical care, and you get a proper equipment at home, and people come and bring you dinner and hold your hand and tell you they're sorry it happened, and you get cards and balloons, and all of that helps you recover and put that in the past, and then you go forward. And maybe some days your leg hurts, and maybe some days you feel a little squirrely when there's a car coming from that direction, but most of your life is back to normal, and your nervous system's back to normal. You're not on red alert anymore. In the case of developmental trauma, when there's a frequent unpredicted a traumatic event, it's like being in a car accident every day without any help. Your system is that jacked up over and over and over again. And so the whole nervous system, the whole organism orients toward threat or perceived threat. And so, like, I know I see threat where there isn't any. Somebody might raise their eyebrow in humor, and I see it as danger because I'm looking through threat-colored lenses, because that's what my nervous system is looking for. And that orientation also changes my ability to hear. I don't hear human voices as well as other sounds, because it changes the shape of the ear canals. And of course, the part of my brain that helps me interact with people well, and enjoy, the beauty around me, and feel pleasure at, the breeze on my skin. All of that is numbed because of the repeated trauma that's built this nervous system that's oriented toward threat and protection, not safety and connection.
Right.
It's a really bad place to be.
So what you're talking about it, that if it's unresolved trauma, it's cumulative and compounded, which then there's a, if we come from that, and the place we're going to is resolve trauma, right? But there's a whole path through that, and it sounds like you're on that path.
Yeah, but it looks more like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, yes. No, it's not really. It's not this wonderfully smooth,
like, what is
straight
she doing?
line. No. I'm still on the from and the to, right?
Okay.
So, right. But that's the piece. It's like, so there's not a straight line from unresolved trauma, right, to resolved trauma, because unresolved trauma is cumulative and compounded. So even in the process of healing, finding ways to, just what you the things of like that I know that you explore with Imogen, right? Those places of finding just a small tiny bit of, that's what the sense of safety.
Yeah, like safety, yeah.
Right.
And ease.
Which some part of you you're allowing yourself to do this interview, right? And I know that some of the folks that I've contacted over the few years I've done this, have not been comfortable being on the radio yet, right? Because for them, they haven't found that. And I always tell them, okay, contact me when you're ready, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like, and it's not even, the viewers can't hear, that can't see my hands, but it's not just what you said. It's not today I'm a little more resolved. Today I'm a little more healed. It's not this steady increase. It's increased back to data, right? Inside, outside. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And really it's learning about, as one trauma expert, and I can't tell you which one because I get them mixed up sometimes, but he says it's about, they all use kind of their own terminology, but it all is similar, about expanding and contracting. Like life is expansion and contraction, and that you just keep doing that at different rates, and according to your environment, according to what's happening right now. That is health, that is integration, that is the organism responding appropriately. But if it gets stuck in trauma mode because trauma keeps happening and nobody even acknowledges it and nobody helps you, and everybody says, oh, if you got a problem with that, well, you deserved it and it's your fault, and shut up anyway, then you're going to be like this all the time, and you can't expand and contract. You become rigid and it becomes chaotic inside the body and the mind. It's a horrible prison.
And when you go back to your definition and thinking of it from my somatic movement perspective, if you go littler, you're trying to get smaller, to be safe. At some point, you can't get any smaller, right? And and you have to start expanding. But if it's not an environment where you can expand, right? Then there's the catch, right?
Right.
Or the, you know, the too much. I mean, I know that I have clients that it's like, you know, in their house, it's, oh, everyone's yelling and it's always really big. But the thing is at some point it gets so big, it collapses, right? And it has to, like, we need to be able to come back into ourselves, right?
Right. Right.
And reach out and come back in. And so that, I feel like that's a really nice transition to the second point. So the first point being unresolved trauma is cumulative and compounded. And if we don't help support folks to, in a non-shamed way, in a trauma-informed way, to recognize that this effect to their nervous system, like, is something that they can rewire. However, like, recognizing, and this was the second point, that PTSD, the actual state of PTSD, is avoidable and recoverable, right? You can heal.
Yeah. Yeah, we can. And it's just the most exciting thing that gives me hope. The neuroscience of it is what really brought me back to life, because I didn't have much hope of recovery before I got to that. Aside from that, you know, it really does absolve me of what's wrong with me, because it's not about that. It's about what happened to me. And so I don't make good decisions. Duh, there's a wall here that doesn't belong here. My relationships are janked up. Duh, there's a wall between my brain and having good relationships. So that's really valuable to me. But also it tells me that it is recoverable, because our nervous systems are constantly updating. Like if you had a computer that updated, you know, like every night when you go to sleep, but it's doing it even more, like constantly to your environment. Anytime you're oriented toward your environment, your nervous system is adjusting to what's happening there. So, you know, the antidote to a janked up nervous system is an environment that feels safe, and where I can, you know, once I have safety, then I can feel safe enough to connect with other people. And I've had, you know, environments that were like that when I was sailing with Nickel. That's what that place is. It's a very restorative place, and a lot of my friendships from there are restorative, but they couldn't, you know, fix what happened after after I got the medical care, because I haven't been able to sail since medical care.
You haven't been able to go back to sailing yet.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing that really kept me going through so much of my life is out of bounds now, and not just the activity, but the neurological benefit and the healing benefit of the community. So, I really don't have anything left but painting and blabbing about trauma right now. And you know, doing what I can to help myself heal and help other people not get PTSD. So to go back to the topic, the PTSD occurs when the environment fails to support the organism. When we're told that it's not that big a deal, or it didn't actually happen, or, well, you know, what were you wearing? When we're not believed. A witness. We need compassionate witness to a traumatic experience, like all the care I described after the car accident. And then we can recover, and it doesn't get stuck. And it's when the environment says, like in my family, nobody talked about it, even though it was happening in all different branches of the family in different ways. It's squished out everywhere, and everybody pretended that nothing was wrong. And so, for a child, they feel, their body feels that all this stuff that's happened to them is wrong. You have the fight, flight, freeze, collapse. And that's what, freeze and collapse were what I could do because I couldn't fight and I couldn't flee. So that is what wired my nervous system. The most extreme distress response is stuck on go.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've wandered off the rails. Bring me back.
I didn't know we were wandering.
Okay. Oh, avoidable. Yeah,
so
because
I'm actually going to put something I just learned in one of my trainings that you might find interesting. I'm doing a training with a woman named Susie Totoro, and she is the founder of something called Dancing Dialogues. And so it's dance therapy and really more with children. However, the training that I'm doing is looking at chronic pain, or what she calls, and I cannot say this word, somatization. I can never get the right letters in there. Somatization syndrome disorder, and the relationship to early childhood attachment. And one of the acronyms she gave, and I've really been enjoying this, is the acronym SHHH. That we all need to be seen for really who we are, the reality, and heard for really who we are. Right? And then the third is held, but it doesn't actually mean the physical hold. It means the holding space, holding presence, holding that you have value simply because you're here. And then the third is hug, and basically, and she says that, and that's whatever physical contact feels safe and nurturing for the child or the person, and that those are these four elements of social engagement, attunement, right, and support. And then you're describing that so well, that if you have an experience as an adult or a child, and people are seeing it and yet don't see you in it, and you're trying to share and they're saying no, right, it didn't happen, or even I don't know if it's worse, it's similarly equally worse to be told well, it doesn't matter, or it was your fault, right? All those things, right?
Right.
That's then depleting the holding. I'm not holding you at all. I'm too busy trying to protect myself.
Right.
Right. And then so any physical contact that might happen between those two people is just not comforting.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of my fascination with interpersonal neurobiology, which
is Dan Siegel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And mirror neurons, and how they help us not just read another person's affect, but actually predict their behavior. And looking back at certain connections I've had with people, I realized it was the interpersonal neurobiology that was really strong between us. And it's just so exciting, because the one relationship in particular was with a shipmate who's diametrically opposed to me religio-politically, but we connected in what Siegel calls the open plane of possibility, and had a wonderful time, playing pirate games and singing sea shanties and going out to breakfast and going to a museum and working together and, learning together. I mean, it was just really fun. And it showed me how much that interpersonal connection builds a bond. There's just a strong bond there. We don't talk. We don't hang out on Facebook together. We run into each other once in a blue moon and we're like, yes, hi. And then we go on because we have that connection. And I feel very strongly that if I ever really needed something from him, I could ask him and he'd do what he could to help me. And I certainly would for him, because of that bond we have. The other stuff doesn't matter. It's there. It's but the bond is solid. And I feel like if we could do that, then anybody could do that. And this is something we really all need to be aware of and practice, especially now that the connection between us is what, you know, all the forces around us are trying to destroy.
Well, and I think that's, so we have like 3 minutes. And so, and I think that's a really, for this time, I'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
But I think that that's a nice place to wrap up, because, you know, some folks listening may not either identify or yet identify, right, that they are themselves a trauma survivor. And I mean, I have seen this throughout my experience, that it's like trying to explain all this stuff about your life, and then something's put into perspective and you're like, oh, that's because at whatever age, right, that thing was too much or too little for too long.
Yeah.
No, you know, the people in my environment may have been doing the best they knew how. They may have thought they were doing the best, and yet for me or for whoever the person is, it's like, oh, well, no, it was, you know, I wasn't heard, I wasn't seen, I wasn't held. And so that to me feels like that's where it slides into whoever is listening, even if you don't consider yourself a trauma survivor and you don't have a diagnosis of PTSD, right? If we all are walking through the world trauma informed, like recognizing that we've got to listen to other people to know what is too much or too little or too long for them. We also have to check in with ourselves and recognize, like, when we are triggered by those other people asking for what they need, right? That negotiation between all the little pieces of the web. Then to me, that's where your work as a trauma awareness activist is, it's there's another word there, right? It's because it's not just about trauma awareness. It's like human connection activist, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the part that just blows me away and makes me so happy, because I've realized that the things that prevent trauma are the things that heal trauma, and also the things that are our interpersonal neurobiological birthright. It's all the same thing. And unfortunately, it's all the domination culture, the dominant culture here in America and in many parts of the world now is anti human connection. It's neuronegative.
Oh, yeah. And that's and in my approach to everything I do, it's that, you know, that body oppression. It's like not really, and I call it like real body oppression, not being with the reality that we are exactly who we are, right? And right, how to be not hinked up by it.
Yeah.
Or when we do have a situation where we get hinked up and we're also safe, like helping our own nervous systems to incorporate that, oh, I can be uncomfortable and I'm safe.
Right.
I can actually have a really triggering experience and be safe, right?
Yes.
And then there are situations where someone's telling me I'm safe and actually I'm not.
Right.
Right. And all of that.
Yeah, and being able to adjust to all that. I mean, that's really what we need, is to be able to adjust in the moment to everything and feel safe while we do it, unless there is that, you know, lion coming after us or whatever.
That's what I say. And then we want our nervous systems to get us to run away or to fight, and and that's the big thing, is not denying that our nervous systems have a purpose, but really letting them work the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, and learning that, you know, how to titrate and pendulate.
Oh,
and
you're
tolerate,
already going into the next interview. And so
yay. Anyway, it's so important to learn those things for everybody, one way or another, however you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Shay, I want to thank you so much for giving me your time and for letting me bring your voice to not only mid-Missouri, but to anyone around the world who listens to us on KOPN.org. Again, Shay Seaborne, you can find out more about her work at ShaySeaborne.com, ShaySeaborne.com. And you also can always contact me at WIWV@KOPN.org, or put a message on our Facebook page at Women's Issues, Women's Voices on Facebook. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And with that, we will go out with a wonderful song. Thank you.